And that's the end of the first half. As the teams head to the locker room, the Spartans lead the Bulldogs by a score.
You guys stink.
Geez, Coach, we're only down a couple of points.
No, I mean you guys really smell. You need to hit the showers. And here, I got every one of you new bars of soap from the Sterling Soap Company. Each bar is artisan crafted using natural ingredients and essential oils. They also have shave soaps, colognes, beard balm, and a whole lot more. Now get in there.
But Coach, we have another half to play.
I don't care. I can't stand to be around you.
A few minutes later.
All right, bring it in tight. You guys are still playing terrible, but you're smelling great out there. Now listen, you're going to need to stock up for the rest of the season. We got a lot of tough games left. So go to sterlingsoap.com after the game. That's STIRLING soap.com. You got that?
Yes, Coach.
Great. Sterlingsoap.com on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Sterlingsoap.com.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience. And today we bring you the story of Shawn Kemp, sometimes known by his nickname, the Rain Man. Now, if you are anywhere near my age, then you definitely remember Shawn Kemp's career. This guy was off the charts athletic. I mean, anyone who gets to play in the NBA is already, by definition, an incredibly gifted athlete. These players have the 1 in a million gift of athleticism combined with height, agility, and speed. But even by NBA standards, Shawn Kemp was clearly more athletic than most, and he was a big man. In his prime, he was 6'10" and 230 pounds. So for some of my younger listeners, let me bring you a comparison. Think about how athletic Ja Morant is. He is incredibly explosive, he has leaping ability, and man, is he fast. Now imagine that Ja Morant was 6'10" and 230 pounds with the same speed, explosiveness, and leaping ability. Now you're getting an idea of who Shawn Kemp was. NBA defenders in the 1990s did not know what to do with Kemp. He was so much bigger and faster than most players. Traditional big men were too slow to keep up with him, and the quick players were usually too small. He simply defied what a player of his size could do athletically. He also had what I think is the best in-game dunk in NBA history, the Lister Blister. I did an episode on that one dunk. You have to go all the way back to episode 82, but it is there. That was a dunk where he threw one down over Alton Lister and then pointed at him just to rub it in. It was an incredible moment. But where did Shawn Kemp come from? Well, he was born on November 26, 1969 in Elkhart, Indiana, which is where he grew up. He played for Concord High School in Elkhart and broke every scoring record the school had. By the time he was a senior in 1988, he was considered by most to be the best player in the entire state of Indiana. He had even broken several of Larry Bird's old high school records for the state of Indiana. However, Kemp did not win Indiana's Mr. Basketball Award, which is given annually to the best high school player in the state. That award was given to a player named Woody Austin, and not the Woody Austin who played professional golf. This was a different Woody Austin who decided to stay in the state of Indiana and play basketball at Purdue University. Meanwhile, Kemp had already announced that he was leaving the state to play basketball at the University of Kentucky. There are conspiracy theorists who say that the voters gave the Mr. Basketball Award to Austin as a way of punishing Kemp for leaving the state of Indiana, but who knows? There is virtually no way to prove it, so I will just leave it there. Now, the problem with Kemp going to Kentucky to play basketball is that he was never a good student, and he failed to achieve the necessary test scores to actually play basketball at Kentucky. He was advised by some people close to him that he should not go to Kentucky since he would not be able to actually play basketball there, which is the main reason he was there in the first place. Nobody should pretend that he was there for an actual degree. But he chose to go to Kentucky anyway under a rule called Proposition 48, where a student athlete can still enroll at a university even if he or she did not achieve the necessary test scores. The rule allowed the player to participate in practices and attend classes under the assumption that the university would provide tutoring and other academic assistance in order to help the student bring their scores to where it needed to be to fully join the team. The assumption is that Kemp would spend his first year at Kentucky focused on his academics so that he could join the basketball for his second year at the school. However, just 3 months into that first year, Kemp was accused of stealing jewelry from a teammate and selling it for money. The teammate that he allegedly stole the jewelry from was Shawn Sutton, the son of the head coach, Eddie Sutton. So he decided to leave Kentucky altogether and nobody would press any charges against him. He transferred to a small 2-year college called Trinity Valley Community College in Texas. However, he never played basketball there either since he enrolled after the basketball season had already started. So on the advice of his high school coach and others, he decided to forget the idea of playing university level basketball anywhere because he was never going to get the necessary test scores where they needed to be in order to play at any school. So he went ahead and entered his name into the 1989 NBA draft. And that was a bit of a risk because he had no university games that NBA teams could look at to evaluate his skill. He was an incredible high school player, but he had not played in over a year at the time of the draft. But the risk paid off. With the 17th pick in that year's draft, the Seattle Supersonics selected Shawn Kemp from Trinity Valley Community College. Thankfully for Kemp, in the NBA, there are no test scores required. The only thing that mattered was how well you played on the court. For his rookie year, he played all but one game and came off the bench, averaging 14 minutes and 6.5 points per game. And there was definitely an adjustment period for him playing in the NBA since he had been away from the game for a year, and the last thing he had played was high school. But his second season, he moved into the starting lineup, averaging 30 minutes per game and 15 points per game. Something else also happened during that second year that would change Shawn Kemp's career. The team drafted Gary Payton out of Oregon State University. Payton and Kemp clicked instantly. It seemed that 3 or 4 times a game, Payton threw up a lob pass for a thunderous alley-oop dunk by Kemp. It was the stuff of the highlight films in that era. They were making the ESPN highlight show just about every single night. I would highly recommend that you go to YouTube and look up Shawn Kemp highlights. Well, after a couple of more years of developing, Kemp made his first All-Star game in 1993 during his 4th year in the league, and just a year later, his teammate Gary Payton also made his first All-Star game, and the two of them would go to the All-Star game together for 5 years in a row. The Sonics also added other good players to the team like Detlef Schrempf, Sam Perkins, Hersey Hawkins, Frank Burkowski, and the old man, Nate McMillan. The Seattle Supersonics were the best team in the Western Conference in 1996 and went all the way to the NBA Finals against the Chicago Bulls, who had their record 72-10 season. The Bulls went up 3-0 to start that championship round, and only then did the Sonics head coach George Karl finally allow Gary Payton to guard Michael Jordan. With that one adjustment, the Sonics won the next 2 games to push the series to Game 6. But the Bulls readjusted their game and closed it out in that 6th game. The Sonics had never gone back to the finals since, but nobody knew that at the time. As long as they had Payton and Kemp, life was good in Seattle. But now let's fast forward a couple of years to the summer of 1997, when Seattle decided to trade Kemp to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kemp continued to play incredibly well, averaging 20 points per game during his first season in Cleveland. But the second year in Cleveland was the undoing of Shawn Kemp. The 1988-1999 season was marred by the lockout. A lockout is the opposite of a player strike. When the players strike, they are refusing to come in and play in order to put pressure on the owners to pay them more or provide some other benefit that they're asking for. But in a lockout, it is the owners who initiate the action by locking their doors and not allowing the players to enter any of their team's facilities, thereby putting the league schedule on hold and putting pressure on the players. And in the case of this particular lockout, the owners could hold out a whole lot longer than the players could. And there is one simple reason for that. The owners of the 30 teams are all business owners who make their millions from a source outside the NBA. So they are all still getting paid from their regular businesses. But the players were not getting paid at all, except for a handful of the elite players who make money from endorsements. Now, by the time the players and the owners resolved their issues, it was already February of 1999. The season was delayed by 3.5 months. The NBA then scheduled a very quick 50-game season where teams had to play 5 games per week, even playing 3 nights in a row in some cases. And here is where it affected Shawn Kemp. The last game that the Cleveland Cavaliers played the year before was on April 30th of 1998 when they were knocked out of the first round of the playoffs. Their next game was not until February 5th of 1999. That means that Kemp did not play basketball for 9 months. That is a very long time to be away from the structure of a basketball team. And when the season resumed in February of 99, it was obvious to everyone that Kemp was somewhere around 50 pounds heavier than the year before. The Cavaliers later revealed that Kemp was actually 70 pounds heavier than the year before. And he still played fairly well, scoring 20 points per game over the 42 games that he had played in. However, by the following season, his scoring dropped to just 18 points per game, as it seems that he was even heavier. The Cavaliers saw where this was going and decided to send Kemp to the Portland Trail Blazers. And the sad thing is that in Portland, Kemp came off the bench and his scoring dropped to just 6 points per game as he lost all of his speed and explosiveness. This was at a point in his career where he should have been at his absolute peak athletically, as he was just 30 years old, but the weight was too much and he slipped to being a below average NBA player. And then he played one final season in 2003 for the Orlando Magic, where he started most games but still averaged only 6 points per game. And then his career was done at the relatively young age of 33. In the end, he was a 6-time All-Star and a 3-time All-NBA player. Kemp felt so bad about how things had ended that he promised himself that he would get back in shape and return to the NBA. In 2006, he had a potential opportunity to join the Dallas Mavericks. Kemp had been training in Houston and had lost a bunch of weight, but on the day of the tryout, he never showed up. There was also interest from the Denver Nuggets and the Chicago Bulls, but again, tryouts were scheduled for him to prove he was still worthy of an NBA contract, and again, he failed to show up on the days of the scheduled tryouts. He also dealt with a couple of arrests, and that did not play well with NBA executives. But in 2008, he signed a contract with a team in Italy and even played 3 exhibition games. But a hurricane in Texas led to him returning to the US to check on the damage of his home, and then the Italian team told him, just stay in the US and don't bother coming back. His comeback was over that quickly. But if he had been able to stay in shape, he could have easily gone for 4 or 5 more All-Star games and put himself in a position to easily make the Hall of Fame. But as of 2026, he is still not in the Hall of Fame, and some consider him to be the best player not in the Hall of Fame. And I definitely put him in a group of about 5 or 6 players who are not in the Hall of Fame, but probably should be. Because when he was in shape, he played at such a high level. He was virtually unstoppable in the open court. His prime should have lasted a lot longer. Today, he still lives in Seattle and is an investor in several businesses. He still makes the occasional public appearance, and he is still a beloved figure among basketball fans in Seattle. They still appreciate what he did in the good old days of the 1990s when Shawn Kemp reigned supreme. Well, that is it for today. That is our profile on the career of the Rain Man, Shawn Kemp. Join us next time when we share another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find short historical posts, and I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.